everybody out there has a mother. Everybody out there is part of a family, whether the family has challenged or broken apart or whatever. You know, many people out there have brothers and sisters, certainly brothers and sisters in Christ. Many people out there have children or grandchildren, which is something that I have both of. And that's my purpose.
Fire and water me, going down deep, sing, oh, oh, bury me, carry me, oh, oh, far beneath, oh, oh, fire and water me, watching me sink, everything free, yeah. Oh, everything free, down to the river. Down to the river.
Hey everybody, we are out here at the National Law Enforcement Museum in Washington, D.C. We're out here for National Police Week, filming an episode of Sheepdog and Shepherd, talking about God's hand in law enforcement. I'm joined by my fill-in co-host, Vaughn, and my very good friend and incredible patriot, General Flynn. Vaughn, I'll allow you to do the introductions here, man.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Vaughn Clean. For those of you we have not met yet, I'm the Director of Consulting and Communications at Force Science. And I tell you what, now what we're doing is going around the country, making sure everybody knows that there is a human behind that badge. So we're involved in most of the high-profile police shootings in the country, and we are seeing a lot of evil out there on how they're treating law enforcement. Today we have General Flynn, who's no stranger to evil in careers. If you want to tell a little bit about your background and how you ended up here today.
Yeah, so first of all, we all attended an event last night, which was a gala event, and it was really to recognize fallen police officers who have been killed in the line of duty. And it was really emotional for me listening to the wife of the police officer from Chicago, the city of Chicago, who was killed in the line of duty, tragically, actually going to a shooting, got involved in a shooting in a hospital. Amazing story. And so for me, I'm here in this place, because of a variety of reasons. And, like Vaughn talking about facing your own evil and your own persecution in this arena that we're involved in today. But a little bit about my background, not only, my military background in the years that I served in the military, but, I have a lot of law enforcement in my family. And I know I maybe mentioned it a little bit to you, Kyle, but, like my father was a military policeman, and he was going to go be a cop after World War II. He ended up staying in the Army as a military police officer and he retired as a sergeant after a 20-year career. My father-in-law was a retired state trooper, that rose to the level of being a lieutenant in the state of Rhode Island. And I'm from the state of Rhode Island. My brother-in-law retired as a captain out of the state troopers, and just cousins, uncles, just brothers, a couple of nephews who are in the law enforcement arena. And good friends of mine who have been shot at, injured, lost a leg while serving as police officers. Different lines. I mean, detective work, undercover DEA work, stuff like that. So I think that we, what you just said about making sure that people understand with all of this technology, all this AI, all of this stuff that we talk about today, every single day there's a human being behind that badge. And I think that if we can remember that, and we bring, because the other side of this is really to talk about, faith. I talked earlier in another interview to draw out of a person who I've just recently gotten to know who contemplated suicide a couple of times, right? And what always people come back to when you go through a very tragic time or you go through a very difficult time in your life is you always sort of refresh or renew your faith in God. And I think that the law enforcement community, first responders, firemen, et cetera, but certainly the military, my brother said this earlier today in another conversation that he was part of. When somebody, you'll understand fear, you'll understand faith, and you'll understand courage when somebody next to you gets a bullet put through them. And when somebody is shooting at you, and the guy next to you gets one through the heart or gets one through the, gets hit, all of a sudden those incredible emotions kick in, and your adrenaline begins to flow. And one of the things that may not be intuitively reflecting on it at that moment, but I guarantee if you recover from it and you get out of it alive, you're going to say thank God. And you're going to look at the guys in your left and right, because somebody probably went down as a result of the interaction and of the violence. But you always go back to your faith. And I think that the importance of faith in this country right now, and I think that the law enforcement community, and I do believe this because you guys have been great, the law enforcement associations and this particular enterprise, this particular communications enterprise, which is extraordinary. We need to bring more of what we do as human beings, particularly those that are protecting, preserving the safety and security of the American people. We need to bring that to the forefront to make sure that people don't forget that those police officers that are out there, they have families, they have lives, they have personal lives, they got their own problems that they're dealing with, but they're out there willingly and ready and trained for it to give their lives for us, for those people that are trying to just live a normal life on this, in the streets of America. And faith is always the single, denominator that keeps coming back to all of us when it gets really, really difficult. And I've lived it, I've been through it, both in my time in the military and then certainly over the last, decade, parts of the last decade of my life, because it affects your family, it affects your friendships, it affects every aspect of your life. And if there's one thing that they can't take away, is that strong belief, that strong faith that you have in God. And no matter what, when you're alone, when you're with family, with your friends, when it's the worst moments, you're always kind of go, man, I pray to God that nothing, that we're going to be okay. And I think that's what I was reminded, strongly last night by that. And it was a great event, great camaraderie, still want to have fun and still want to make, light of things that matter, just because we're human beings and we need that sense, that sense of humor to remain. But at the end of the day, this is a very difficult, life is unfair and it's very difficult. And I think people that maintain their faith are the stronger for it.
General, I got to say, you're not just a man of words. You're a man that lives and breathes that faith. I've been blessed to pray with both of you personally, and to be at many events with you at Mar-a-Lago that you ran with your organizations, that you made sure that God was known to be welcome there, that it didn't matter what your faith was, that we were going to honor God, and you have lived a career and a life of honoring God. There's that old expression, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole, yeah. Right? And you have served your country incredibly honorably. Have you found that to be the case?
I mean, 100%. 100%. I mean, I've said that actually a lot of times, my father taught me that. My father was a World War II and a Korean War vet. And so he had, extensive experience, fighting in Europe, in World War II. And then, he was going to take his early family, 3 of my brothers and sisters, I'm one of 9, out to occupied Japan was going to be his assignment. They get out to Fort Lewis or, out to Seattle, to get on a boat to go to Japan in the early 1950s. Korean War breaks out. He sends my mom and 3 children back home, right? Gets on a boat, on a troop ship, and goes to northern Japan, and then they went right into the Pusan perimeter, and he ended up like almost 3 years in Korea. And, you don't know whether they're going to come home, right? So yeah, I mean, um, and he's the one that used to say, because of all of his experiences, you're not going to find any atheists in a foxhole, because when you're there, it's like, Jesus, I hope, in fact, that I said, Jesus, right? I hope we make it out of here. God help us, right? People just, it's like almost like those euphemisms that we use as Americans sometimes, that, whether you're a believer, a practitioner, or you're just not sure where you stand, when that challenge comes, you're praying that there's a place, and there's somebody watching, there's a guardian angel watching over me. And because when we think about the sacrifices for battlefields, it's extraordinary. You think the battlefields of America right now, which we have battlefields out there in many, many major cities, and then just you have the random stops on the side of a road sometimes where a great young police officer on routine patrol gets shot and killed, or gets assaulted massively, and you're just praying that when you're in that situation, you're just praying that there's a God, and that he's got your back. And I think if we talk about it, we act that out, you don't have to like wear it on your sleeve, but you have to believe. You got to believe, because you'll be healthier. Actually, you'll be happier in your life, wherever you're at in your life, family and kids and everything else, because it's that strength of faith just brings something more to each of us. And to me, this idea of no atheists in a foxhole, the foxhole is not just on the battlefield physically. Foxhole is the difficulties that you have in life that you're facing, and you want to face it with your faith, with what I call true friends, and a family that binds together and is able to stand with you when the times get tough.
So I did a career in the military as an attorney. I did a career before that as a police officer. And what's similar about those is this selfless service, duty first, right? We train to have calm in chaos, and to be really uncomfortable, or to be really comfortable in uncertainty, right? Mm-hmm. And when I hear this idea about, there's no atheist in the foxhole, what I realize is when you run out of options, when you no longer can rely on your own devices, when you're seeing things that are really unfair, whether they're in the foxhole, whether they're on the street, or whether they're in the courtroom, you're left with nothing. And if you have nothing, then you have to turn to the God of certainty, the God of promise, the God who is always there, right? And I think that's where people like, what do I do now? And I think what you just mentioned is important. It's like, you don't have to wear it on your sleeve. You don't have to be out there trying to get people, to proselytize and get them. But what you do is you give them an option. You put it in a rucksack, and you say, when you're out of options, if that's what it takes, there's a God waiting for you. And that'll be a God that gives you that peace that surpasses understanding when you're in that foxhole.
Yeah. You're bringing up a good point. So what God provides is he gives you the most options up to the last possible minute, and whether it's on the battlefield or on the streets, you always have an option. Even when you think you're out of them, you got an option. And the option is to say, I commit.
Yeah, drop to your knees in that moment. And
it's an option.
Yeah.
General, how can people learn more about you and the organizations that you run?
I appreciate it. I mean, I'm chairman of what's called America's Future. It's actually the oldest nonprofit, or certainly we haven't found another one that's older than this one. Created in 1946, right after World War II. And actually, we have found, when we went through our archives, we had stuff from the late 30s where we taught about constitutional values, American values, faith, family were at the center of what it was created to do and to be. We also were originally in the late 1940s, post World War II, we were really looking at the communist movement inside of America. So we became the people that were members of America's Future became really sort of pointy end of the spear of people that were pushing back on communism rising in America. One of the big names is Phyllis Schlafly, was one of the big names she was a massive pro-life movement in this country. And so pro-life and the life movement, we have taken that on, we've been champions of that. one of the areas that we get involved in now is we get involved in what's called Project Defend and Protect Children, or we call them, we have these summits around every state in the country. We've done 12 states so far. Our plan is to go to all 50 states. And we call them Get in the Fight Summits, Get in the Fight Summits. And it has to do with the scourge of child sex and child slave trafficking in this country. We are number one in the world, which is just, it tells you the moral decline and the lack of our connection to a faith. The Christian community needs to rise up in this country. The pastoral community, I don't care, what ecumenical faith you're part of, but we have to rise up to really fight this. We're the number one in the world, United States of America. So that's one of the things that we get deeply involved in. And that's kind of our connection. We really started to, early on when I took on the role, which is right after the 2020 election. I wasn't, everybody was in a state of play as to what was going on and whether or not things were going to happen, what was Trump going to do? And we started looking at these problems, and we do get involved in cases as well. Our nonprofit has filed over 100. We just went over 100 actually about a month ago. What's called amicus briefings. So we support any legal action where the protection of one of our amendments, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, 14th Amendment, any protection of amendments that's at risk, we will dive into that and head first. And we have a great team of sort of old hand lawyers who we work with. They're wonderful. One of them used to be on Ronald Reagan's Deputy White House Counsel team, and they do most of the work for us totally pro bono. These are old hands, and so in the time frame that I have been part of this, we will fight in district, appeals, or Supreme Court, and we've done it. We have, like I said, we have over 100 amicus briefings into the Supreme Court. And one of the things that's important, why do I bring that up? Justice Clarence Thomas spent 10 years as a Supreme Court justice, 10 years. Never asked a question from the bench for 10 years. Remember, Justice Thomas went through all this craziness to get confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. So he got on there and he never said a word. He would make these great rulings, but for 10 years he never asked a question. When he asked the first question, which was a remarkable moment in history, because it's just amazing that you'd have a Supreme Court justice never ask any questions during a case hearing. The first question he asked ever had to do with an amicus briefing. Okay, so he asked a question from an amicus briefing that was filed that was accepted by the Supreme Court. So I want people to understand that every single thing that we do matters. And so from our nonprofit's perspective, I believe, I'm one of these people that believes whether I'm talking to one person or 100,000 people or 1 million that we might get on a podcast like this, it only takes one person to be that person of courage that stands up, and stands their ground on the street as a police officer, as a soldier, or just as a civilian, as a servant of this country, as a citizen of this country, and stands there and has the ability to overcome their fears and demonstrate their courage. And the way that you do that, you renew and strengthen your idea in your faith. And you've got to, and we're a nation, based on principally Christian principles and values. And I've written actually quite a bit about that. And we need to be fearless about those. Not that you're going to ever lose the emotion of fear. It's inbred in all of us. We have it. But what you can do is you can learn how do you respond to it. And it's not easy for everybody. And I know that. I definitely know that. But if you have a real strong sense of who you are and your faith, you can work through it.
Love it. What's the website?
It's americasfuture.net, americasfuture.net. And what we ask you to do is take a look at us, become a champion for America by joining our team. And you can join by praying for us. You can join by joining us. And we're a nonprofit. So, we don't take a dime from the government. So we take no money from the government. And that, we've been accused of all kinds of things. We take nothing from the government. So all the money that we do get are principally from grassroots donations, and then events that we hold to raise awareness and to raise funds. And you got to do that as a nonprofit.
Awesome. General, super grateful for having you on the show. Super grateful for your brotherhood in Christ and for all the work that you're doing to support our country. So parting thoughts?
Yeah, look, I just let you know, sir, a lot of people are watching you and they're seeing what you're doing. They want to be part of that fight. What I think was important today is when they see the man, they want to know what's the foundation of that man, what gets you up in the morning, what gets you the strength to stay in the fight. And I think they saw a little bit of that today. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And the last thing, because you mentioned it, everybody out there has a mother. Everybody out there is part of a family, whether the family has challenged or broken apart or whatever. Many people out there have brothers and sisters, certainly brothers and sisters in Christ. Many people out there have children or grandchildren, which is something that I have both of. And that's my purpose. My purpose. And I saw last night, and I'm getting emotional about it. Somebody showed me their daughter, and it was one of the survivors. It was a child of one of the survivors. It was the wife that showed me the picture of her daughter. And I said to her, as she was describing, where she's at in her life, the daughter, I said, that's my purpose. That's my purpose. And I think that people need to understand that you got to have a purpose and find it. Find your purpose and then go accomplish it. Go do something about it.
Amen. General Flynn, Vaughn, thank you both. Guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for sharing this video, reposting it everywhere. Thank you for supporting this incredible nonprofit organization. God bless you all, and God bless America.